Find your beauty within. Right now, here with me, I have Jennifer from Good Robe Co. She is a designer from an apparel company, but the apparel company is to change women's lives. Look good, feel good, do good. That's the tagline. So, Jennifer, tell us a little bit about Good Robe and Co.
Thank you so much for having me, and thank you for talking about Good Robe Co. It was born out of the idea that after working with women, I had my own stores for years, and I worked with a retailer, and I helped them develop clothing for women. After all that time spent seeing women in clothing, I really got to learn, what pieces tend to look good on most women, right?
Yes.
Not everybody has the same body type, but there are definitely pieces in the wardrobe that are universally, when they're done right, flattering. And so
Exactly.
that was the idea. And when I came up with it in 2017, it was this because everything was fast fashion. So it was all like these one-off outfits, stitch fix, you get an outfit and it doesn't go with anything else in your closet. And, you wear it a little bit and then you go, oh my God, I have this closet filled and nothing to wear because it was not strategically put together and it was not an intentional closet. It was just sort of piecemeal. And, that's
Now I'm gonna say, especially during the social media, it's a social media time.
Yep.
Sometimes I take a picture and I'm wearing something. I don't want to wear it again
Yeah.
because I took a picture with it and people saw me with it. So how do you go about that in fashion? How do you change? Like, say for example, I have this pink jacket and people see me on the podcast. I'm not gonna want to wear this again. So maybe it's
Right.
a way I could wear a scarf or a different blouse. So what would like stuff
That's
like that?
exactly it. And if you notice, the pieces on my site are like black, ivory. So there are a lot of neutrals and they're designed to go together, but you might wear a red button down. You might wear all black. You might put a white t-shirt under that with white sneakers. So it's all about, like you're saying, it's all about how you're styling it. And that's the beauty of basics, is that they're universally flattering, but depending on how you style it, you can really make it yours. It's your personality that comes through. And that's what I love. I always love when people are like, oh, aren't basics boring? I'm like, they can be, if you don't style them the right way. So to your point now, I will say that's a fabulous jacket and
Thank
it
you.
does stand out. And so the more prominent the piece, it's going to be harder to wear it more, which again goes back to why all my pieces are very neutral. Because if you see me wearing my jacket over a dress, we have something called the Trailblazer, which is like our number one item. If you see that over one of my dresses, and then you see me wearing it with denim, you're not even going to it's not going to click for you that it's the same item. So that's exactly the idea of this. It's all made to mix and match and all made for women to add their own personal style. The ivory suit we have, I love, and I tend to wear it. We have a black and ivory print that I pair with it. But I had this girl who bought it and then she sent me pictures and she was literally wearing under the ivory suit that pink color that you have on. And she's like, I'm all about color. And the suit, you wouldn't even know it was the same suit because it just looks so different the way that we styled it. So yeah, it's about styling it for sure. We'll make it look a little different.
And what about fashion struck your interest? Like, when did you get involved in fashion? Did you go to school for it? Did you like fashion ever since you were a child, or you saw a
It was a
designer on the
Barbie.
runway?
Barbie did it. Barbie did it to me. But Barbie did it in a way that most people collected Barbies. Like, they're like, but I collected Barbie's clothes. Like, I could care less. I had one Barbie, and if you asked me where she was at any given time, I probably didn't know. I didn't care. I used to just lay out the clothes. And I used to do this thing which is perfect now. I would lay it out and say, okay, this outfit is this. Then I would take one of the pieces and put it in the center and have another outfit where that piece could pair with the other outfit. So I was like, mixing and matching at a young age. But with that, I also was like, when I was little, it was this weird thing. I used to look at people, I'm like, oh my God, she'd look really good with this, or oh, if she cut her hair like this and then added this, and it was always this idea of helping people look beautiful. And so always, like even in college, I would do everybody's makeup, I would do everybody's hair, I would dress everybody, and I would be there, we'd be going out, and I wouldn't be ready. I'd like put my hair in a ponytail and go, because I had so much joy in making other people look good. Because
Nice.
that is so empowering. Like that is so cool, and it comes so easily to me that it's things that like I take for granted that I know how to do. It's just sort of something I've always done. So I when I even when I work, I work a corporate job. I still work a corporate job in addition to Good Robe Co. But I would have clothing that I would have worn for a while, or you buy stuff, you don't like it, I would bring it in to work there was 3 girls who would fit into everything that are my size, and I would split the bags, and I'd be like, this is for you, this is for you, this is for you. Like, how do you know? Like, I know your personality. I know you're the one who's going to go for the blazer. You're the one who's going to go for this. Like, and I could always
Yes.
like just look at somebody and kind of know what looks good on them. And that is an amazing, when you share that, that is just so like to see somebody's eyes like light up, especially when they come in and they're, I don't know how I feel. I don't, and they usually come in and you can, in their body language, you can see, like I had my own stores and they would come in and they'd sort of be a little bit like, I don't know, I really need something new. And like, get in that fitting room. I'd throw them like 10 things and they come out, and their eyes would just light up, and that was the best feeling in the world.
And did you go to college? Did you go to school for this?
No, I did not. I went, well, so I started as a buyer, and buyers, for me, it was that I had a very strong left brain and a very strong right brain. I'm a numbers geek. I love numbers.
Ooh, okay.
Like, oh yeah, I know. It's a big thing for me. Like I have
But you
a mom.
creative and you're also analytical.
Yes. Oh yeah. And that killed me, because I'm like, what am I going to do when I grow up? Because, most jobs are pretty far one way or the other. And I was like, at some point I was like, I'm going to be an actuary. I thought I was going to be an actuary because I love numbers, and everybody's like, not with your personality. Like, and then I loved art, and I would be in theater, and, so it was really difficult for me. So when I heard about buying, I loved the idea because it allowed me to be in fashion and be creative with product, but then also to look at the numbers piece of it and tie the two together. And I actually think that's why creating the line was, I'm going about it differently, is that a lot of designers, I think, are just very creative. And
I never knew that buyers had to deal with numbers. I thought they just purchased clothes for the store. There's more to it than that.
You know what? It's so funny. It is so much less the products are important, but it's all the analytics. It's all
I never knew
like,
that.
okay, we had a sell through, and should we buy more? How much more? And that's all based on numbers.
Like the inventory stuff.
Yes, it was all inventory management, maximizing sales, making sure you had a high sell-through so that you didn't have to do markdowns. There's a lot.
I never knew that.
Yeah.
At one time I wanted to be a buyer. I never knew that. But I've worked at certain retail stores like Saks and Marnie. So
yeah, so you had that attraction to the clothes. Whenever like every time I'll do some sort of like a mentor sort of like presentation, and you could always tell the people who didn't realize math was a part of it, and they are not math fans. It's like there's a little bit of oh, okay. Like, I never knew. For me, it was like that sold it. That was like the selling point. I have a mug at work that says, "This calls for a spreadsheet," because I just love working in Excel and working with numbers. So,
and what did you learn from being a buyer to helping you being a designer now? What did you learn from being a buyer?
So this is designers. A lot of designers are strictly creative. They don't work well with the numbers. I know what sells, and because I know what looks good. And so I feel like I'm a little bit, I think I look at things and I say, okay, I don't just do it because it's a creative thing. I look at it because it fits, she's going to look good in it, it's the right price. Like, I looked at all the components that I know makes a good product versus I feel like making a pretty blazer today. You know what I mean? Like,
Yes.
and there's nothing wrong with, I mean, that's wonderful. And that's why usually you have two sides. You have even buyers. It's funny, buyers work with numbers, but there's planners that they work alongside of. And the buyers need to understand those numbers and need to work the numbers. But a lot of times the buyers are a little bit more like, well, they fall in love with the product and they want to buy more than, and the planner's sort of like, yeah, no, you don't have that much money. And
So question, so if buyers deal with numbers, why do they go to Fashion Week? I mean, why do they go to the shows? I thought they go to
so
the
they
shows
they
to
do
purchase.
both. They do
Oh, okay.
both, but they've got the analytics behind them. So when a buyer is sitting there, she's not just sitting there looking at an item. Now, if you go into high fashion, it's a little bit, yes, you still have to manage the inventory and know that. But there, I think your eye is even more important. It's a different eye if you're talking more mainstream, more department store, more gift store. You're really looking at what turns, and you have historical references, like, oh, we had this item and, it sold really well. I think we do well, but you know what? We don't want it in orange because we don't sell orange. We want it in blue. Blue always sells for us. So it's understanding how those numbers impact, where I do think a lot of designers tend to be a little bit more reflecting what they want and what they want to see, but that can be very limiting. Whereas I'm looking at the greater, like, I know what sells after years of having my own stores, working for retails. I started at Lord & Taylor. I was in their buying program. And so, after years of that and seeing it in my own stores and actually having that one-on-one with women when they try things on, and I know it works. So sometimes I would go to shows, when I was buying for my own boutiques, and I did a lot of high-end product. And sometimes I would sit at the collections and I'd be like, who are they designing that for? Like, who's going to wear that? like they don't always understand the consumer's needs. They're not necessarily creating for the consumer's needs. They're creating for their own needs to a certain degree, or what they find visually appealing. And so, if you're selling it, you see all those things, you're like, oh, the sizing's too small, nobody's going to fit in this, or, like, you can see all of those obstacles. And so when you're designing, I'm trying it on, I'm really like, and so when I say I designed it, I'm more, I would say, like a stylist. I don't do the actual specs on it.
Okay.
Exactly. So I worked with somebody, but I would say, okay, it's too fitted here, it's too long, I want something on the sleeve because so I did all the detail work and made all the changes because I'm like, oh, this is more flattering. Like, a woman needs it to be a little bit longer here. It should be shaped, but it shouldn't be fitted. All of those details that after putting women in clothes, I'm like, oh, after years of like putting button downs on women, I'm like, okay, I don't want it to be too structured. I don't want it to be too long where it's sloppy. You have that in your head. And so those were the pieces that I put in the collection. There's technically only 14 pieces in the collection, but we have multiple colors. But it's things like blazers, button down. We have this booty cut pant, which is my favorite pant. Yeah, and I call it, it's a boot cut, but it also makes your booty look good. So
we all want that.
We all want that. And it was, all the pieces were based on pieces I had in my closet for like 15, 20 years.
And do you have all sizes from petite to even plus size? Because
I don't have plus size yet. So I used to be a plus size buyer. And so when I started it, this is us, like my husband and I, like, we paid for this ourselves. So it had to be really focused because it's expensive. And I had to buy a certain amount per size. But I also used to buy plus size, and the specs, a lot of times, it's not like when you go from a 2 to a 6 or even to a 12. Once you get beyond 12, a lot of the other specs shift a little bit. It's not like it's the same pattern and it's just getting, whereas when you go from, let's say 2 to 12, a lot of times you're able to start at a 6 and like take 2 inches here, 2 inches here, like, but once you get over a 12, the specs actually change in other ways. And so I wanted to do it right. And I didn't want to, it to go into it without the history of what pieces do people even like? What is resonating? And now I can take that feedback. And when I do develop the plus size piece of it, I know what I'm putting into it. But we also did make our sizes generous. So even our 12s in our pants, I would say are more of like a 14, 16. It's definitely more of a vanity sizing, because I do lean a little more towards the curvy girl, because I'm a curvy girl. And so it's definitely more forgiving, but that is the goal. I mean, I bought for that size for years, but I want to do it right. The flattering pieces.
And also, like some women, as far as it could be women that are in a beginning pregnancy, they could be like 3 months pregnant, or women that just had a baby and they have a fupa, or women that just have a fupa period. How do you cover, what outfits and styles do you use to cover the stomach that's unflattering to some?
So with my tops, what's interesting is sometimes I think if you go too big, it's actually less flattering. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, people lean towards,
it looks more frumpy. It looks frumpy.
It does, and they know that what you're covering. So how I went about my tops, if you look at all my tops, especially the button down, which is like my signature piece, it is shaped. It is shaped at the waist, but not fitted. So it gives you that look of a waist, and then there's darting in the back. So it gives you that look. And then, but it also has the space in it. So it's not, so whether you're big or not, it kind of hides it, because it gives you that illusion of having the waist anyway.
Illusion, yeah. So what outfits do you usually recommend to give that illusion?
So what's interesting is that the blazer, anything structured, like the more structured you can be is usually the most helpful from a figure flattering standpoint. So blazers are great because they hold the shape, because you've got the shoulders, but it's all blazers are not created equal. So the same thing, I had it so that it hit right at the top of the hip, because once it gets too long, it's too overpowering and almost makes you look heavier. So you want it to hit not too short, but not too long, right at the hip. That definitely helps. And then my tops are the same way. What you're doing right now too is where you have sort of your blazer, and then you have opposing color, that contrast. It almost gives an illusion there, because you're sort of cutting it here, and so it's people see that center part, and that kind of becomes your figure. I don't know if I'm explaining that right, but anything that can sort of like cut you here, so that it just kind of sums you, so that they see this part more, is great.
And they're not really focused on the stomach area.
Yes, and then my wrap dress. I did the wrap.
Wrap dresses.
My wrap star dress, but I did extra things to my wrap star. So a lot of times you'll see it, and it'll be kind of fitted. And Diane von Furstenberg, who I have to say,
I'm going to say, she knows her stuff. Diane von Furstenberg started the wrap dress. Yes,
she did. And I used to carry her product in my stores. And out of all of the people, I used to say even from a pricing, she's not cheap, she's not inexpensive, but I will say out of everybody, the value for her product, because her fabrics are gorgeous, her detail, she is one of the few designers that I think really do design for a woman's body to make it flat, like to flatter a woman. She understands it. She understands all the little details. If I had to pick one designer that I think gets it right, she does. 100%. Yeah. And so the wrap dress, I mean, that is all illusion, because the wrap brings your eye to the waist, which is a woman's smallest part. But what I did, and a lot of times, mine is not jersey, so it's not clingy in any way. which is great, but it has a great drape. It's actually machine washable, which is very cool. But what I did was I did sort of a, not really 3/4, a little bit shorter, but what I did is I added a little ruffle here. So it goes down just long enough to cover, if you had a little bit of something behind your
on
arms.
your arms.
Which I struggle, like that to me, I can feel it and it drives me crazy. So it hits, and then with that little flutter, it makes the rest of your arm look smaller. And I added that same flutter to the bottom, to the hem, so that it actually also helped offset your hips a little bit, so that your legs look a little slimmer.
Awesome.
Yeah, I try to do, and it's funny because I love talking about it because it's really hard. I'll show pieces and I want to tell everybody, like, do you see how this does this and this does it? But you really don't have, it's really hard. You don't have a platform to do that. I always try to call those things out when I post, but you don't know if people are reading. But all of that craziness, like, I'm very crazy and like attention to detail went into every single piece. I drove the designer crazy. Like, the girl who did my specs, I was like, it needs to get loose. Like, I must have gone back so many times, but I knew I did a good job when we were at the photo shoot, and I had one. So what happens is you come up with a collection and they send you samples. And at some point you get what's called production samples, which means that they are, all the specs are corrected. And this is sort of like a preview of what it's going to look like. Well, I only had production samples in extra small and small, and not everything in both. Most of it was in small, some of it was extra small. And it was my first samples. And I had the two models, and all I kept saying is, what if they don't fit? What if, I'm like, what am I going to do? You know, and I've done a ton of photo shoots. I didn't have to pin anything. I didn't have to cut anything. It looks like the product was like designed for them. And I went, okay, this is good. And that's what I've noticed is people order from me. And I have like people telling me I've never taken a suit out of the box and put it on and had it look so perfect. So that's the kind of stuff that keeps me going and gets me excited,
And so you only been in business for a year. Am I correct?
Yes.
Wow. 1 year and it's already blossoming. Awesome. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
Since you only been in business a year, what are any pitfalls or difficulties that you have managed as a designer or businesswoman?
I'll tell you, and I'm sure everybody, has this, it's cash flow is really just tough, especially where I'm dealing with production. And, if you are somebody who provides a service, you still obviously need an income, but you don't have to lay out money ahead of time. So like I have to pay for a place for storage, a fulfillment center. Now I could do that myself, but my house would be filled with pants and blazers, which would be bad. But it's now I've had my first collection, and you expect it to like sell out immediately. You're like, because you think everybody's going to see it, but the exposure to get it out there, because I'm direct to consumer. So I don't do wholesale. I don't sell to retailers. So the only way I get people is word of mouth. And you just don't sell as much as you think. And there's literally something called like the friends and family phase. And that's when it's really only your friends and family buying. And so you think it's going to sell a lot quicker. And so then at some point, it's like, now I have to come up with, I want to do more collections. And I'm definitely going to have to pitch for funding, because it's very difficult, because you're not going to get that, especially as a newbie, you're not going to get that sort of the sales traction that you need to be able to purchase more collections. And that's rough.
And from the business standpoint, what are, let's say, for example, there are designers, because designers don't, a lot of designers don't know that you have to be creative, but you have to have a little business savvy, because there's business, whether you have your online site or you're a designer, you want to sell your items. So what are some of the things they need to do as an entrepreneur? Like, should they get an LLC and a website?
Everything
like that.
everything is a website. People now don't even want to talk to you. They want to see your website. So even if you're providing a service and it's not product, I think the website is so important. I think having a presence on social media is important, because that's another thing. The next question is, where can I find you? And I feel like Instagram is sort of like a really important calling card from a visual standpoint, where people will like just scroll through and be like, oh, I like your look, or I don't like your look. So I do think Instagram is really important. And one of the things that I noticed, and you think it's obvious, but I think it's important, if you have a brand, that you have somebody or a story that people can sort of relate to. There's so many times I see these sort of, I want to say, faceless companies, and they might have a great product or whatever, but they don't really have a story. They don't stand for anything. Nobody. And so I don't love, being on social media myself, but I feel like it's important that people get to know me, get to know my story, understand what we're about and what we advocate for and what our mission is. And that, to me, more and more people, I think, care about that. They care about the story. They care about who they're buying from. So to have that voice from the beginning is really important.
Yes, I saw on your Instagram that I don't know if you work with them or collaborated with it's Dress for Success.
I just did that. Okay, so I have to tell you, because I have a crush on Dress for Success. Like I always have. When I first heard about it, I was like, there was a moment where I actually was sad that I didn't think of it. I'm like, that's so smart. So I've always been a fan, and it's sort of been a dream of mine to work with them. And so from the very beginning, I said I wanted to do it. My goal is to ultimately be selling enough where a percentage can go to them and we can create our capsules. So we create capsules, which are these 6.
Yeah, I saw that on your website, the capsules.
And so I want to be able to just give them to women in Dress for Success. So that gives them sort of a foundation that they can start working off of. We don't sell enough for a percentage really to make a difference. So what was great is I got to go there, and I did a presentation to some of the women in Boston, and one woman actually got a capsule. And so I can't wait for her to get it. So it is my goal to continually work with them to see if we can get women into these capsules, to help them dress. It was probably like, it made my year. That was the best experience. And they talk a lot at Dress for Success about sort of the idea of, I call it a capsule, but this idea of a wardrobe that the pieces work back and forth so you get more mileage out of your clothing. And so it was a perfect marriage. So it's an amazing organization, and the more I can get involved, the more I will.
I guess we have to tell the viewers what Dress for Success is. Because I don't know if people watch, if they would know.
Yeah, no. So it's this idea that women who are getting back into the workforce, they basically have these, you can actually donate clothing to it. They have, and where we were, I didn't get to go into the boutique, but they have this boutique where they can provide women who are coming back into the workforce. How do you interview for a job? If you're homeless, if you're, if you don't have any money, if you're living on the street, but you want a life, what are you supposed to do? And so they provide these women with an interview outfit, but then once they get a job, which is even better, they have them come back in and they help them put together sort of a foundation for, so that when they do go to work, they can mix and match and have outfits. I forget if they said for like the first month, till they start to get back on their feet. Which I'm like, it's brilliant, because how do you expect somebody to get out of a situation they're in and you're not leveling the playing field? They're going to show up, and I wouldn't go to a job interview if I felt like I couldn't look the part, or I couldn't show up and feel professional or empowered. Immediately you feel like you have a check mark against you. So I think it's wonderful.
And since fashion is about aesthetics, when you say empower, how can you empower women with fashion, with clothing?
Well, I mean, I know you know it. You have that bright pink jacket on right now, right?
Yes.
How empowered do you feel?
I
You
feel
feel
empowered. Yes.
yes, and that's the
And
same
it
thing.
makes you happy when you wear something colorful. It's a bold statement.
Yes, and here's the thing: everybody has what I call their vibe, and when you're in your vibe, right? It's like the inside of you comes out. And so not every, fashion element is going to be for everybody, not every trend, but when you find the things that resonate with you because they allow you to reflect your personality on the outside, there's nothing that you feel like you can't do. And so what's interesting, there was a Forbes study done, and it was about the importance of how you dress. And we all think, I think this is the people will say, oh, well, you want to look good to impress others, or you want them like you go to a job interview. And what was interesting is that the angle that they found was more impressive was how the person in the clothing changed when they put on the right clothing and how it
Yes.
changed.
Like they said, dress how you want to be addressed.
Yes. And so there was a study where they put I guess there were it was doctors, and I guess it was medical school, and they weren't quite doctors yet, but they put on the white coat, and they said they made different decisions. They made better like they immediately
Wow.
went into that role and into that headspace. So it might be somebody puts on a suit and they feel like, oh, because they see themselves that way, they act a different way. And then it sort of becomes, then other people see them that way. But sometimes you have to see it visually before you can become it.
I have a question. Because this fashion era, I watch a lot of red carpets. I'm pretty sure you see red
Mm-hmm.
carpets. I notice people are wearing less and less clothing. I see,
You
butt
did
cheeks
notice that.
out, breasts out, which I don't mind in moderation. But what do you think about some of the fashion trends now?
So I'm going to say this. I think that there's two components to fashion. There's wearable fashion, and then I think there's theatrical fashion. I think that there's a place for I think we love seeing people on the red carpet do daring things, but they're not going to be wearable in most of our lives. And I think knowing the difference, the wearability.
But there's some people that don't know the difference. They're
And
looking
there
at
it
them
is.
saying, I want that. I'm gonna go online and get that outfit.
Yes. Yes. And and it's hard for me because I really believe that if something resonates with you and you feel good in it, you should wear it regardless. Like I have a thing I hate. I'm just going to say it.
With your butt cheeks out.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. Fashion Week, they said no pants. They were just wearing blazers. It was like a whole. Did you see that whole thing? Like where
Some people
people
could get. I mean, if a person's tiny, they could get away with that. If you're tiny and the blazer is
right.
pretty long, like a mini skirt, and you don't bend down, you could get away with that.
But do you remember there used to, I don't know if it was Glamour or Cosmopolitan used to do something called, I'm dating myself, Real Way versus Runway. So like I see that, and you know what I immediately as a designer think of? I'm going to do a blazer dress. So it's dress length, so nothing's hanging out, but it's just the blazer. So you get the vibe, but you also are covered and and you can actually wear it. So I see that theatrical piece, and then in my head I go, well, how can I make that so that a woman feels like she's getting that trend, but it's wearable and it's flattering, quite frankly, because most people can't walk around with a blazer in their underpants. Like nobody wants to see me walking in my car like that.
You better be in an Uber or a car or something. Don't go on the train.
And this whole sheer thing too. There's a lot of sheer. And then
I do like some sheer. I saw when a woman, she had a blazer and it was long and like past like her thigh, and then she had the see-through pants. That looks nice.
That's
like
nice.
Some see-through is how you wear it. I like that. I might buy me a pair.
You should. Well, and I've seen a lot of people who are stylists and they lean a little bit more towards like I'm doing basics, I'm doing like really wearable things. But I see the importance of that theatrical piece and that fun piece. Like I say, I would wear my suit and then I would wear a sheer shirt under it. And there's ways to play with that because if I think it's a cool trend, I'm gonna want to wear that. And so you shouldn't be, you should be able to do that. Like you said, there are ways that you can wear it that are going to be flattering. So I'm not I might be anti, walking out and being all in a sheer thing. But for me, but the people who do it right, I think it looks great.
Yeah, it looks, if you do it right. And then this question, in order for you to build this platform, what motivates you? Like, what gets you motivated?
It's honestly, it goes back to like working with people in a fitting room that like I get a text from somebody and they say, when are you going to come out with more colors on the girlfriend shirt because it's my favorite shirt? Or, I immediately put the suit on and I felt great. That's what keeps me going. It's funny I don't even care about the sales. I'm like, somebody's going to buy, like when somebody buys, yes, I'm excited that they bought it. I always worry. My whole thing is, but do they love it? They got it. Do they love it? When they put it on, does it do all the things that I wanted it to do? So for me, what keeps me going is this idea of like, I have all these ideas for like the next collections and the pieces, and I know that I'm doing it right. So to be able to expand on what I've done and to add some more trend pieces, not so trend, but like some different fabrications in the styles that I know people love, like faux leather and my crop pant would be really cute. Like I have all these ideas, and knowing that I'm going to do them in a flattering way and at an affordable price, because I go direct to consumer, I'm not dealing with a middleman. So for the actual fabrics that I use and the quality of the garment, it's a huge value. People get it and they're like, my jacket's like, $149, let's say, but if you compared it to a $400 jacket, you wouldn't know the difference. I have a great liner, I have beautiful fabric, and people are always surprised. And I'm like, well, that was part of it. I wanted it. I don't feel like fashion shouldn't be affordable. It should be reasonably,
Yes.
and that's, but as long as you still have some quality, I think it's important.
And since you've only been in business a year, what do you see more for your business within the years to come?
So I have all these ideas for additional, more small sort of capsule introductions. So I have a Ponte knit collection that I want, so it helps women to travel and put the pieces together. I have all these small additional capsules I'd like to do. But on top of that, my website, when I created my website, I created in a way that ultimately I want to be able to have a virtual closet for women. So when you purchase from me, you can put those items in, but then also add items from your closet so that I can help people when I introduce items. I can say, oh, you can wear it like this with the items, or they can.
I like that. It's almost like a personal consultant.
And my goal ultimately is that women will connect on that platform. And, we could be talking about an item and like who styled it best, right? Women can show like, oh, I wore mine with denim and a picture, and sort of using that sort of social media piece of it to connect to other women and help each other get dressed.
Yes, yes. Well, we'll be closing out, Jennifer. If you want to give people your website, Instagram.
Yes. So definitely check out my website. Is great. It's Good Robe Co. So it's GOODROBEANDCO. So the Good Robe is like wardrobe, but it's a good robe, which I love. And all of my handles on Instagram and Facebook are also Good Robe Co. So you can just really working hard at TikTok.
But thank you so much, Jennifer.
Thank you so much for having me. This was so much fun.
Wait, hold on.